Hey, Loopline here. In this video, I want to cover the Email Scraper Premium plugin from Scrapebox. So it scrapes emails and it does some other things such as scraping custom data and email verifying and other things that the standard email scraper does not do. Standard email scraper that I'm talking about, if you're not familiar with it, is under grab check and grab emails by crawling sites. It'll crawl through sites and grab emails. The premium plugin, you would go to show available plugins and email scraper premium plugin. You can buy it if you don't already own it. Once you own it, it takes up to 12 hours to get activated after you purchase it. So just be patient and they'll activate it. If you buy it with a different email than your Scrapebox license, then you can email them based on the contact form on scrapebox.com and let them know what your license email is and what your purchase email is, and they'll get you set. Once it's activated, you'll have to restart Scrapebox as always with all the purchases, and then you go here and install or update if you need to do that. And once you have it, you go back to Premium Plugins and go to the Email Scraper Premium plugin and just click on it and launch it. And so that will load up, and this is what it looks like. And so there's lots of different tabs across the top, and we'll just go through these basically. So the crawl loaded list function is basically more or less the equivalent to the scraping emails by sites that we just looked at in Scrapebox. It does have a few more options, but it's more or less the same thing. You load in a list of URLs and scrape it. But let's start over here by searching for keywords. So normally if you want to scrape emails, you're going to have to go here, scrape up your keywords, and so put in keywords like car, cloud, green, whatever your niche keywords is, real estate, I don't know, whatever it is, you put it in, and then you scrape the results over here, and then you run the email scraper. This sort of does it in one step. You put in the keywords that you want, and so I can just type in the same thing here, and I go and select my engines over here. I can also load the keywords and of course clear them, select all, select none, that sort of thing. Standard Google scraping things apply. I have a video on how to safely scrape Google. Since it's a Google service, you're probably going to want to use proxies. Otherwise, Bing is very lenient, at least at this time, etc., etc. So once you do that, basically you can hit start and it'll just go through here and start scraping. And I'm going to stop it here because I want to show you options. But you can see it started working with search results from engines up to 1,000, search results in queue, and then worker threads, sites in queue, and emails extracted so far. And all of that relates to the options here, which look like this. So you have the search only and pages with. These are some nice things. You can, when you're searching by keyword, you can only search for pages that have the word cloud. So I punch in the word cloud with Google, for instance, in Bing, and then I only want to search for the word that has hosting in it. So this will find pages that have the word hosting in it that came up for the word cloud. And so it actually looks at the actual pages before it scrapes an email from it. So maybe you want to get emails from a contact page, or maybe an about us page, that sort of thing. So you can put those words in there. You can also do all of the words, none of the words, the exact phrase, etc. And then you can do any word in the URL as well. So that would actually be words in the URL, not just in the pages themselves. And then ignoring emails when they contain usernames or an email that domain that contains. So the username is the part before the at, so it's going to be username at domain.com. So the emails that contain usernames here, that the username part is right here, and then the domain part right here that it's talking about is going to be this one right down here. So you can put in, if you want to ignore ones that have like youtube.com or and there's some, obviously the site is, if it's from the site YouTube, that's fine, but maybe you want to ignore gmail.com and you only want like yahoo.com or whatever, or maybe you want to ignore things in the username that are like admin. Maybe you don't want to talk to the admin. Maybe you want to talk to somebody in sales, or I don't know. So you get the point. You can do whatever you want there. Grabbing emails only when email username, again, username and domain contains. Only if you're looking for specific things, maybe like info at or whatever. Here is where you're going to put in your proxies. You can load them in from a file. You can paste them in, same format as Scrapebox. Normally, the IP port, username, password. Here you can choose to use proxies or not. And this is the settings for threads. So worker threads processing is 1 through 100. It's set at 20. This is how many levels deep you want to crawl. So you can only crawl the source page. That's the first page that comes up in like Google search results or Bing search results for the word, in this case cloud, that we're searching for up here. I can then dig, to level 1, to level 2, and it'll just keep digging farther and farther and farther all the way down to level 8 if I want to. So that'll just keep going and following links, internal links, not external links off the site, but internal links off that given domain name. Again, and applying these filters up here along the way. Only scrape emails matching the domain. That means if the domain is cloud.com and the email address is info@gmail.com, it's not going to work. It's not going to scrape it. It'll only scrape it if it's info@cloud.com. So that means just the from the domain itself. Total number of search results to process. This is all the way up to 1,000,000. So this is 1,000. So this is going to go. This isn't search results per keyword because of course search engines limit you to a maximum of 1,000 per keyword no matter what, and sometimes they cut it off at less than that as a soft cap. This means total number of search results to process. So if I punch in 4 million keywords, it's only going to scrape up to 1,000,000 search results, and then it can go 8 levels deep, which would be insane. You wouldn't want to do that, obviously. So basically you can limit the number of search results total volume that you want to start with, and then as you scrape X levels deep, it's going to go on and get even more and more and more, which is where you see this here search results in queue. So I have 101. If I put this at level, let's just put it at level 2 for instance, and we'll just run it for a second. As I run it here, it's going to go here, and then you can see these results in queue, and then you can see sites in queue. So it's queuing up all the search results it finds, and then it's queuing up all the sites that it finds. These are internal links that it's scraping off of your initial sites. That's how we're getting up so high. And then emails extracted, and we can see the keyword, the email, and the URL. And then of course once it's done, we can send it to the email tester if we want, or we can just export it and stick it wherever we want. And we can export all unique emails as a text file or all entries as an Excel file. So unique emails as a text file is going to just be a list of emails, just one after the other, just like this. And all entries is going to give us the keyword it started with, the actual email, and the URL that it came from in a nice Excel format that looks just like this, columns and all. So that is the search by keywords function. And you notice the options here has a lot of options. As you go from tab to tab, the options button, what it brings up changes. So we can see a little bit of a change here with the actual load a list. This is if I have a list of URLs, like say I have a list of websites I want to start with, all of the companies in my niche, for example. I load them up, and I can again set it to go, I don't know, however many pages I want, like 5 levels deep or whatever. And the worker threads, again, scraping email from the domain, and all this stuff is the same we just talked about. We can exclude particular domains, loading proxies, etc. So all that's the same. As it works through here, again, it's going to show you the worker threads, the sites total in queue, and the emails extracted so far. Same thing on the export. We get a text file if we want, or we get the Excel file that gives us the original URL, or rather not the original URL, the URL the email was found on, and the email itself. And so what that means is if I load in cars.com and it goes to the cars.com contact page, the URL that shows up here is going to be cars.com/contact. That's the URL the email came from. It's not going to give us like cars.com and then just give us an email. So we get to see the exact page that the email came from. So that's very similar to the grabbing emails by site here, if you're familiar with that. If not, then that's how it works. Extract from local files. This is pretty much the same thing here, although with better filters, as grab from a local list. So if you're familiar with that, that's fine. Basically, you get to load in a text file, and it will scrape the emails from it. So let's say that you had just a giant document that was a text file that had emails mixed in it along with lots of other things that you may have gotten. Then you can load that in, and Scrapebox will make it simple and extract out the emails of it. Or let's say you had some particular website that had a bunch of emails on it that you had to get through like a paywall, and you had to sign in to see it and everything, and you wanted all the emails off that page, but Scrapebox doesn't support authentication, so it couldn't log in and get them for you. So you could just save the page content of that page as a text file in your browser, just save it as a text file, and then load it here, and Scrapebox will go in and pull out all the actual email addresses. Same thing here, worker threads, files in queue, and emails extracted so far, and you get the email and the file name that the email came from, and then you can select multiple files here. So if you had like a bunch of files that had it in there, you could do that and just select them all, and away you go. Options here is a little bit different. Again, we're back to the ignoring and grab emails only when, and then the username and the domain, and then how many connections we want to use. And the X's over here, by the way, these just clear it out. They don't delete the field, it just clears the field. And so extract email from account. This is not like any function in Scrapebox at all. This is if I want to load in an actual, like let's say I want to load in my Gmail account, right? So I have all these emails from all the customers that I've corresponded with for the past, 3 years, and I just want to get all their emails extracted out. And this will be emails that they may have put in a signature in an account, in the body of an email. This will be in the subject of an email, although I don't know if you'd put one in a subject. This will be, to and from fields, that sort of thing. It'll extract everything. So when you load in your username and password here and this other information, and try connecting to a server, that's like a test, and then you get settings, basically your timeouts, and don't download emails that are larger than X bytes. Search the message body for emails if you want, and then add senders emails in there if you want to add those in there. This is basic, but just bear in mind, if you're doing like Gmail, see, they punched in some basic settings for you here. But let's say I wanted to do Yahoo. I have a Yahoo account, or I have my work account, or I have whatever, right? So you're going to have to get this information correct. If you get the information wrong, it's not going to work. You have different SSL versions. So if it's like your work account, you may have to contact your admin or just look it up how it's set up in like your Outlook or, whatever email program that you use if it's on, whatever. And your username and password, obviously you would need to know that, and then you can just try it. It'll tell you if it fails, it'll fail. If it works, it works. And so once that's done, you can start it up, and it'll go through, grab the emails, and it'll show you emails in queue and emails extracted so far. This is the emails on your account that it's looking through for email addresses, and this is how many it's got. Again, we're back to export, unique emails as a text file, and all entries as an Excel file, because you get to see the email, the sender, and the subject of the actual email, and we can export all that as the Excel file. Now the email verifier, this is new. What the email verifier does is it just verifies if an email is valid or not. So obviously emails die, people change emails, people leave jobs, they get new jobs, and the emails change, maybe because the emails were based on their name or whatever. So anybody who's done bulk emailing already knows what this is, and they know that they have paid a premium to companies to verify this because it's difficult to do. I will say up front that this is not something that is 100% accurate 100% of the time. That's just not possible. But it is as accurate as it can be based on the functions without actually sending emails to a customer's account to verify if it totally worked or not. So it does not actually send emails to the person's email address and spam them to death, because that would be obviously bad for so many reasons. It goes through a series of steps to check to see if the email is actually valid without actually sending the email. So if you've done emails, you can pay companies top dollar for this sort of service, and I've had so many people over the years that have asked for something like this, and it's finally here, and this particular feature for anybody that does bulk emailing will pay for itself a dozen times over for the cost of the plugin in short order. So pretty basic. You load in the email, you get the test result and the status itself. Emails loaded to test, emails tested, emails valid, emails invalid, and errors. Options include a few basic options here. We're going to have the sender's email address. So I just punched in like one of my email addresses here. Again, it doesn't actually send the emails. It just needs to know something and you do want to put in a valid email address here because it does want to test that it's valid. You don't have to put in POP settings or IMAP settings, just punch in a valid email address. So maybe create a Gmail account if you don't want to use your email address and punch it in. The threads, number to run at once, only basic checking like the format and MX lookup. If unchecked, checking of emails can take up to 40 seconds per batch. So it's going to take longer if you uncheck this, but it may be a little bit more accurate. So just bear in mind, if you have extra time, you want the accuracy, let it go. So I'm just going to do the basic check, and when we're done here, I'll show you how to work it. But the filter gives us the option to remove valid and invalid, and remove all untested and error emails. So I'm just going to grab a couple of emails here, and we're going to load them up, and I'll put them in a file here and set it up. And so I went ahead and loaded in a couple emails. One that's a valid email, loopline@scrapeboxmarketplace.com. That's my site, my email, totally valid, and then some nonsense email at nonsenseemail.com. Obviously that's fake. We're going to hit start and let it run, and email is valid, and this is a DNS error because it was totally fake. It was a valid website, but it was fake. Then it would come up with a different error. So you'll see different errors here under the status. But basically you can see that's the basic concept. It runs and away we go. If we uncheck this here and we don't want the basic and let it run, it's just going to take longer theoretically but it's going to go through a deeper process to see if it's actually a valid email address, and I'll pause the video while it does that. And so that took like 25 seconds, and away we go, and it's working and ready to go. So then again, I can export them and that sort of thing. So super valuable feature here. Let's go to the custom crawler here and look at that. The concept here is you can grab emails, but you can grab everything. So this is sort of like twofold in my opinion. On the one side, let's say that you want to approach it from emails, and I have a directory, right? Again, cars.com, let's say I'm a car dealer. I don't know why I just picked cars because everybody knows it. So let's say I'm a car dealer and I need car emails and from a directory of other car owners so I can communicate with them and talk to them, right? So I can go to the website and I can get the directory and I can create markers, right? Markers are just before and after. They're HTML of a page. So if I want to do, something that looks like this, let's just bring up a notepad file here. And let's say that the HTML of the page is, I don't know, something like this. Just put the body, and then let's say that there's some HTML marker like I don't know, we'll just call it a span. As I type spam, anyway, span, and this is some email at mail.com, right? Whatever. Doesn't matter. You can do this in any web page. The markers are going to vary. This span is not going to be the thing that's used. I've never even seen it used like this, but it's just the first thing that came to mind. This is a marker, right? So I would put this as my before marker and this as my after marker. So this is really basic. Now let's say that they formatted a couple of different ways on the page. Let's say that the next time it's on there, it's formatted as a paragraph, right? So it's just here, and same thing here. Again, I'm just making really basic stuff here. Then I could also put here. Now you wouldn't want to use obviously these like paragraph because you're going to extract everything on the page practically. But you get the point. You'll find really unique markers. They'll go through in a directory in their HTML. They'll make it really simple. They'll put in like an email and they'll probably title it like, some sort of elements that calls it like an actual email address in the actual HTML. And then they might vary it. So we can put in a couple of different variations here, and then I can add this as a new field. Now I want to label it, so I'm going to call this email. And then I get a width here, so I don't want to go over whatever. I can say that I don't want to extract obviously the whole page. So if I put in 150, then it's not going to extract like 6 paragraphs of text if the markers happen to match up on that, if that makes sense. So let's say my marker is here for paragraph. Obviously I only want the email. I don't want like half the page. So if you're not familiar with HTML, this will take a little bit of basic understanding of HTML, or at least just some basic knowledge of looking at a page and being able to say, okay, this is what's before it and this is what's after it, and I want something that's unique, put it in there. You can usually get to the HTML of a page by doing Control U, if memory serves me, in a browser, and it pops it open, or you can just Google it. There's plenty of probably a million YouTube tutorials on it. So I also get to choose my field. Is this a text field? Is it a numeric field, email, URL field? And then field will not be modified, expand relative URL to full URL. We'll talk about that in a second. So let's say it's an email field, it has to have the @ value. So this obviously isn't going to match if I just go through here and have random text and it doesn't have the @ sign in there. So that's nice. I get to put that in there, up to 3 alternates, and I can add this as a new field, right? So here's email, and it loads my field up here. Now let's say I also want the person's name. Now, if you're working with like 4,000 different random sites, contact pages, and you want to get names and emails, this really isn't going to necessarily work like a lot of people think, because what happens is all those pages are formatted differently, and you might have 1,000 different before and after markers, and it's just not going to work like what you think it is. The email part might work, but if you just want the email, then you just go over here and use the crawl loaded list, and it'll just pull the email out and give you the page. This is if you want to get some extra information with it. So this is really more tailored to if you're working with like in your particular niche, like cars. Everybody uses this plugin from WordPress for their contact information, and it always formats it the same. Then that'll work, because as you go from site to site, domain to domain, the plugin is what is consistently creating the formatting the same, right? But as far as if you're just going to do a bunch of random sites where anybody created anything can create formatting, it's just not going to work. So if you have a directory though, like let's say cars.com is a directory of all the car dealerships in, I don't know, Japan, right? I don't know. Anyways, so let's say it is, then they're going to be consistently formatted as well. So that'll work just fine. And so we want to put in the name. So let's just say we're going to just call it stupid stuff here. There is no name tag that I'm aware of in HTML, but you get the point. So it can be anything, right? So then we're going to add this as a new field, but we're going to put this as a text field, obviously, because I want to add it as a text field. Oh, forgot to put name up here. Name. Let me pause this. Right, so add it as a name. I'm going to have email and that sort of thing. And I can change if you want to change if I want my name before the email, because you can export this obviously in Excel. If I want name to show up first, I just put this up, see up, down, and it swaps where everything is. And you're doing that up here, and it displays it down here. And so then I can also, so let's say I want to capitalize that, right? So I filed it up. Now I can update this field, right? So I don't lose it. I can also save this as a definition file, right, so that I can come back later, and then I have this nice little drop down. So I would choose save as when I'm done with this and save it as a definition file for the next time I come back in here, so I don't have to recreate everything, obviously. Now let's say I want the phone number, right? So phone numbers are handy. I'm just going to put random stuff here so that we can move on. This is a numeric field. Obviously, I only want to contain numbers, right? So now I'm going to add it as a new phone number there. Now let's say I want the actual URL of the website, so I'm going to just call it website, whatever. So here I can put in URLs. Now the URL field will not be modified. That means that if it's a full URL like this, cars.com, right? It's going to pull in the whole URL or whatever it is. Maybe it's, I don't know, contact, doesn't matter. So let's say it's taking a whole URL like this, cars.com and /contact, whatever the URL you're working with here, it's going to get the whole URL and it's going to put it in the URL field. So let's just put something here so that we can add this field and I can show you what I'm talking about. So if I go to website, here under website, it's going to pull up the whole URL, whatever it was, off of the end site. And so that's fine. But if you're talking about a relative URL, it's going to expand the relative URL to a full URL. So let's say that this is what a relative URL is. When you're on a website, if you know HTML, a regular old link looks like something like this. There's about 1,000 variations, but this is the concept. You see this. Put this here, some anchor text, and then you have something like this. So you have something like this. However, that's a full URL. It's a valid URL, and that's when you're going to want to use this sort of a field right here where it doesn't get modified, right? So, but some websites will just use like what's called a relative URL. So again, there's some sort of variations, but it might look something like this. So it assumes when you're in a browser, the browser assumes that if you click on contact and you're on cars.com, it's automatically going to append cars.com first before that and try to go to cars.com/contact. But if you just extract this and you just have /contact to show up in this field right here, that's of no use at all whatsoever. That's called a relative URL. And so you can expand the relative URL to the full URL. And when Scrapebox comes along and sees this link, it'll say, okay, I'm on cars.com. It'll automatically add http://www.cars, ooh, that's a lot of W's, cars.com. And when you get your end link, you're going to have this right here show up in the actual website field. So that's what that is. So this is the basic concept. We can keep going here and get more information. When it's done, we get a nice little export as well. Again, it's going to export with different options, but we're going to see basically an Excel style export like this. And then under options, we can go and again add more filters. So we can only look for words or pages with certain words, all the words, none of the words, exact phrase, any of the words in the URL. Same as like over here on the first page we saw, first tab. And then worker settings, we have to select the total threads and then how many levels deep we want to go in this as well. So it can also crawl more levels deep, which is totally amazing. And we get this whole thing. So that's how I would get it if I wanted to get like contact information. I said there was two things, and I know this video is getting long, so bear with me here. If I'm approaching it as I want to get an email, that's the concept of why this is built. But I also see this as another opportunity. This is a total custom crawler, right? So in Scrapebox for years now, they have had this, since Scrapebox 2 came out, this custom data crawler, right? And right here. And what it does is you could define it and it will do custom crawling of any kind of not contact information, any kind of information at all that you want. If you wanted to get the price of a product off a page and then the product name, you could do it. But the drawback to that, it was designed as a very basic scraper. So if I'm doing price and product, it will give it me a text output file like this: price, product, name, price, product, name. Now let's say that it comes across a page that has no product name, then it just puts price, and then the next page is the same price, and then price, because that page has product name as well. So it can get confusing, right? And then I might have two pages with a product name, but no price for whatever reason. Maybe the product isn't launched yet. So it can get confusing because you just see this. Now you can append the URL to it, but it doesn't give you a nice clean Excel style format like a lot of people wanted. And that's just a limitation of how that scraper was built. And so this scraper to me is its whole own animal that can totally grab your price and your product name, right? Because we can call this right here product name. And then I can call this price. Obviously, I would have to change these fields and values and that sort of thing. And then maybe I want to, right here, I don't know, I want description of the product because maybe it's like a short thing. And then, right here I want a link to the website, whatever. Or maybe I just want to delete this field because I only want like 3 fields, right? So now I have all this across here, and it's totally sorted in an Excel sheet. The other cool thing about that is, in comparison to the custom data grabber, and if you've never used it in Scrapebox, you won't know this, but for all the people who have, then if it skips it, like let's say I have 2 pages with a product name and no price, I'm just going to get product name. It's not going to be all funky formatted like this. I'll just see a row with product name and maybe description but no price, and then it'll just keep going on to the next one because we have set up our markers like this. Rather than it just being a running field of data, it can go over here. Anybody that's used the old custom scraper knows that if you're doing like 1 piece of data or 2 pieces of data, this isn't bad. But if you want like 6 pieces of data off a page and you load it in, this can get really confusing, especially when pieces of data are missing. Like if you're doing fax numbers and half the pages have a fax number and half of them don't. Some of them have a name, some of them just have an email address, some of them have, a product price. You get the point. It can be all over the map, and this can be, it's not a mess, but it kind of can be a mess because it's doing what it was built to do, but it was only built to do basic things, not like 6 pieces of information. This over here, you can keep going and put like 10, 15 different pieces of information in here. And as long as that's all there and you're working with, again, the pages have to be formatted the same, I can't say, all right, well, let's go grab the price and product name and description off of every page that's selling anything on the internet. It's not going to work because, again, the HTML formatting isn't the same. But let's say I have some Shopify store or some store over here, and I haven't tested it on Shopify, but in theory it should work. But I have had people come to me and say, they're a reseller of a product, and they're allowed to use all the names and descriptions and prices and everything off of some master website, but they need to get it all, and they have 5,000 products. Well, now they can scrape that data, whereas before it was much more complicated. And so this can be used in so many different ways. It's totally its own custom scraper, and it just, the possibilities are limitless here. We can go from everything from contact information to total business use completely outside of that. And lastly, generating URLs. This is really handy because let's say that the custom crawler here, in conjunction with it, that we had pages that we wanted to generate based off of keywords because we only want the items that we're selling. Let's say we're selling keychains and we're selling, I don't know, dartboards and maybe like computer mice, whatever, random stuff. Anyways, let's say I only wanted those particular things, and then let's say I wanted to go 5 pages deep. So I can fabricate a URL that looks like this, where it has a token. And if you've done anything and other things in Scrapebox like custom harvesting, this is the same kind of concept, but you put in the keyword that you want to use and then the page number, and I can fabricate all this URL. So let me just show you how it works. So I'm just going to go with a random website here. We'll call it parts.com, and I've got this already typed up. We'll bring it over here. I'm going to punch it in. Parts.com. I'm going to search for my search query, my keyword. So it'll take keychains and stick it in. And then page start is going to be page number. So We're going to start at page 1. The number of pages I'm going to go with is 5. The increment of pages is 1. So that means like if you go to the website and the website you click on a 1 and it's 1, and then you click on page 2 and it has like 10, or probably it wouldn't be like that. It'd probably be like start would be page 0 usually, and then you click on page 2 and it's 10 and page 3 is 20. That means it's an increment of 10, right? Or maybe it starts on 1 and then goes to 5, and then goes, or 0 and then goes to 5 and then goes to 10 and then 15. You'll know the page increment as you look through it. You just go through the next, clicking next on pages in your browser, and you'll see it. So I'm just going to call it page increment 1, and that'll go page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. I can do keywords and then page numbers, or page numbers and then keywords. This is whatever you want to do. I mean, in this example, it makes no difference at all. It's just how it generates first. And then I can generate these. I can load these keywords or clear them out. But once this is done, this is what I'm going to get. So I'm going to get parts.com keychains, page 1, and then parts.com dartboards, page 1, parts.com computer mice, page 1, and then keychains, page 2, dartboards, page 2, computer mice, page 3. And see if I switch this. See, it starts with all the keywords on page 1 and all the keywords on page 2. If I switch it, then I get all the first keyword, all pages, and the second keyword, all pages. Whatever works for you. Doesn't matter in this case because I'm going to process them all. Then I can take these and export them and save them off as a file. And then I can go back over here to my custom crawler, and the URLs that I want to crawl, I can load those in. And you can't see them, but you can see the URLs loaded was 15, which we have 15 here. So now I can go through and crawl all those pages for product name and price. So if I had to some place and I only wanted to, an example of using parts, I only want to look for these 3 things, and I only want to go 5 pages deep, and this is how the site's set up. I can fabricate all my URLs to go to the custom crawler and then put it in and go get my product name, my price, and my description from all those URLs without having to get from the 50,000 other things that they're selling, or hand copy out all 15 of these pages, or 5,000, or whatever. So you get the point. So this has so many applications to do the keywords and fabricating URLs in conjunction with the actual custom crawler. And this could be used in other things in Scrapebox too. If I wanted to do something with the link extractor add-on and I only wanted certain, keywords or certain pages, and I can do it so where I just have like this, where it's like a page start, for example. I don't have to use the keyword token, right? So I can just punch this in, parts.com, and just put in a page number. So let's say I wanted to get email addresses from a forum that has, and the forum is partsforum, partsforum.com / and then it just has page numbers here for the page to generate the profiles of each user on that forum. So I can do that and just get it, and it'll just do those. I don't have to use the keyword token. Same thing, I can use the keyword token and not use the page number token. So if it's just a bunch of keywords that I wanted and it only brings up one page, I can do that. So I can use this in all sorts of other aspects of Scrapebox for different add-ons and different functions to get all sorts of information. And there's already, Scrapebox already has a phone number scraper built in, and that sort of thing. So if I wanted to grab like phone numbers off these pages, or if I wanted to grab, I don't know, the usernames of the forum profiles from these pages, or whatever, the list is endless. So that is the Email Scraper Premium plugin. You can purchase it again inside of Scrapebox, and this is all of the different facets that you can use it for, and really the combinations here I see are endless, and there's probably even more that I haven't even thought of yet. And if you made it all the way through this video, congratulations to listening to me talk for about a half an hour here, and I wish you luck. And this is the Email Scraper Premium plugin. Thanks for watching this Scrapebox video. For more Scrapebox videos, click the subscribe button down below and then click the bell. And then check out these other great Scrapebox videos.